The Department of Transport will today visit the Gibela Rail Consortium in Dunnottar at Ekurhuleni. And this, of course, as government looks to celebrate the first 100 locally manufactured trains. And this, of course, is part of a 1 billion rand investment. And we're here with Minister Fikile Mbalula to tell us more about this and, of course, other related matters. Minister, good to have you in studio. Welcome.
No, thank you. Good to be here this morning. Yes.
So let's start with the 100 locally manufactured trains. So it's been a while in the making, quite a bit of money being invested in this. But perhaps just for the benefit of our viewers, let's go back, talk about the Gibela factory in Ekurhuleni and the investment that's been made there.
Gibela is a consortium which is constituted by a foreign equity partner, Alstom, and Ubumbano, which is a PE partner. This consortium was baptized by government to produce local trains to upscale our rolling stock as it was aging. We are employing the 1,500 people, 90% South African, and it is supplying trains. And in terms of our north-south corridor, in the African continent, we're also going to expand in the African continent. So this is a very important initiative that was launched in 2014 by the then Minister of Transport and the Deputy President, then who was Cyril Ramaphosa. And we're supposed to have our 100th train set in 2020. We stopped for 5 months because of COVID-19. We're back on track. Our projection, not even our projection, our agreement is to produce 600 trains for South Africa, particularly for passenger rail rolling stock upgrade.
So let's talk about the investment, the initial investment, and to date, how much has been spent? How's that investment going?
It's huge. We spent over 3 billion to 4 billion on this project. And we're looking at spending more in terms of Gibela trains. So it is an exciting initiative, which we're looking forward to benefit more from it in terms of the new rolling stock.
So many South Africans would say, Minister, you are aware of just how the rail network has been stripped across the country. And the evidence of that, I mean, we spoke a lot about it, especially during the COVID-19 period when we had the restrictions and nobody was moving for some reason. The stations, especially in and around Gauteng, were just stripped bare in some instances. So it's all good and well. It is a milestone. We have these locally produced trains, but where are they going to operate?
You go to Mabopane, they are operating as we speak. You know Mabopane is yes, where the president had a breakdown with the train. Mm-hmm. It's back online. It's one of the presidential projects. They are in Cape Town. They are in KwaZulu-Natal. We're looking at deploying some in Eastern Cape. But KwaZulu-Natal, they are there. We're looking at expanding now our base in terms of where these trains are supposed to be parked. Volmaten, Braamfontein, and Paardekraal. And the modernization of those centers has been stuck in the system for quite some time. It's back on track. So if you go to Volmaten, you'll find most of these trains. So you are asking exactly the same question somebody was asking me. Nice trains, where are they operating? They are there. Pienaar-Spoort line, which we have stopped and upgrading as part of the 10 corridors, and we are already at 5. So I don't want to claim easy victories. A lot of work is going into PRASA, and the story of state capture is gonna be flashed out by the work we are doing. Okay. In terms of bringing to life the new trains.
Before we come to state capture, and I want to talk about the report, I want to talk about the rail infrastructure that has really, taken a beating. And with regard to that, Minister, the question has to be, why was that rail infrastructure allowed to be dilapidated to the point that it came to? Why was that allowed?
The ruin of the rail, particularly, it is years and battering of years of vandalism. And with a couple of months of lockdown, we witnessed the intensification of that. And a part of the problem was, among others, the security contracts at PRASA, which partly it's a decision of the bench in terms of Judge Lope. The issue of separation of powers is also important, because judges tend to prescribe policy from the bench, and we as politicians are supposed to implement what they have decided. But over and above that, the decisions of the board, irregular contracts, massive irregular contracts at PRASA during the years of state capture, we can show you that, which have been discovered by the AG, as well as in the derailed report of the public protector. And the decision that was taken in that short space of time about renewing some of the contracts and all of that affected the further vandalism of the rail infrastructure, which has been battered over the years. And this is what we have to deal with now and ensure that we reverse that.
What is the cost of the refurbishment of the infrastructure?
The cost of the refurbishment of the infrastructure, talking about, it runs into billions of rands. I can't quantify per aspect of because you're talking about the modernization program, which is, Gibela is part of that, run into billions. And then you talk about upgrading of the infrastructure that was battered and attacked.
But surely,
and
Minister,
vandalized to the ground over the past few months. It runs also into billions of.
But it's important not to conflate these matters. When we're talking about the Gibela trains, we're talking about the upgrades that needs to be done. That's quite separate from an issue whereby someone has to take accountability and responsibility for those rail facilities and the network that was allowed to be run down and dilapidated. Has anybody been held accountable for that?
Yes, the processes of the law beyond even the state capture are taking place, and we should give you an update on that in terms of derelict of duty, but over and above those who need to face the law. There is a lot at PRASA. I mean, when I arrived at PRASA, everybody was afraid to touch anything because everybody was running. There was no capacity. There was nothing. And that's why I took a decision, given the GTEC report against the board, which I disbanded. And then we had an administrator for less than a year. And then immediately we appointed a new board that is still intact at the present moment. We moved with speed to try and get the CEO and all others to be employed at PRASA, which is a task that we're still handling, and it will be finalized soon. So a lot of contingency plans have been taken. And should some of the decisions not taken in a very short space of time, I think we could have arrested what exacerbated the situation during the period of the total lockdown. Remember, the trains were running for 40 years. And the only time they stopped was during the lockdown, because we identified the trains as the mass spreaders of the virus. So it is only then that they stopped. So we're bringing them back, and it's a massive job. And remember, when we stopped them, there was no security in the trains. The trains themselves that were using, windows and everything were broken. So with the stoppage, you had the vandalism of the rail tracks and all of that. So that is what we're fixing at the present moment.
So let's talk about consequence management in terms of who has been held accountable, because I think accountability is key, Minister. Otherwise, we just continue from one disaster to the next without necessarily holding people accountable. So let's go back to the previous public protector, Thuli Madonsela's report, Derailed. She was very clear about what needed to be done. Has anybody been held accountable directly as a result of that report?
There is work that is being done around that, yes. I want to be honest with you. Even myself, I've been very impatient. But the law enforcement, remember, was also affected and was part and parcel of this. You see, you need to look at the damage that was caused. It's interconnected. You don't look at the one at the expense of the other. Law enforcement now is doing its work and rebuilding itself, giving more budget to chase these people. It's not easy to arrest these crooks, particularly sophisticated crooks in terms of how they have embezzled the resources of state. If you look at major contracts, which are in court now, Siangena, which was supposed to deal with the IT aspect of PRASA, big contract, we will not be having a problem. I can take you in Kempton Park. You go and see the network design, not even design, what has been built there, which if it was intact by now, we wouldn't have problems of signaling in terms of rail. And then I can take you to Shifambo. You talk about the locomotives. If we had locomotives by now that would have been purchased properly and proper, 4 billion down the drain, we wouldn't be having those problems. Now, people at state capture came forward and pointed even more about who are the people who were involved in this irregular contract. And I'm coming to state capture.
I'm still at Derailed because Thuli Madonsela, in her 10 years public protector, did in that report indicate some of this irregularity that emerged during her investigation. And she recommended that all contracts above 10 million rand be investigated. Was that done?
Those have been done by us at the present moment with SIU. You'll get the report about that.
So you're doing it now?
It has been done by us intensifying those investigations. And the reality of the matter is that the derailed report and irregularities were not properly investigated. And that has been the situation at that particular time. And we have taken it upon ourselves to ensure that these things have been done. And the Zondo Commission in terms of state capture was just, a confirmation.
All right,
of
we're
what
coming
we know.
to that.
Yeah.
So therefore, if your predecessors as ministers of transport did not act on the recommendations of the derailed report, were they not derelict in their duty?
They will give their own account. Ministers of transport have been changed quite a lot.
So
let me explain to you. I don't want to blame them because each one of them will give their account. In one term, you had about 3 ministers of transport in a portfolio. This was the portfolio that I think was, I don't know, neglect or whatever. It's the backbone of the economy. And every time I say this, it's like I speak for myself not to be kicked out. But that is the reality. If somebody stays in government in a portfolio for a month or 2, in a big portfolio like this, you think they will change anything? Blade can give you an account. I found him here, was doing something about it. He was gone. And then when he was doing something about it, there was no board. Remember the years of infighting. Popomulifen, Lucky Montana, it was not a weekend special. It took a period of time. Whilst the public protector had already said that there is a mess going on here. And then Letsoalo came in. CEOs at PRASA, changing. Like I'm telling you, when I arrived, there was literally nothing there.
So, see, Minister, my consternation with that is it cannot be easy for you to say that officials within PRASA are derelict in their duty, and yet the political figureheads get off scot-free. they also need to own their part and take accountability for what was not done during their tenure.
Yes, you can check what they have done. When I arrived at PRASA, there was no board. It was an interim board that took some of the decisions that did not actually help us, and it was not helping us. To get to this point of stability with the board, which you can criticize, it has been a milestone on its own. I want people to be blamed based on what they seek to do or what they did. And
or did not do.
Or did not do. And then in that case, I can't protect even myself against accountability. But I can give you a breakdown of what we are doing now, and there is a lot that
What are you doing now, Minister? Let's talk, because, you know, you've been mentioning the Zondo Commission report in volume 2 of the report, very detailed on what has gone on at PRASA. So what are you doing at the moment? Before even the Zondo Commission, we attacked all the irregular contracts, which I think this Thursday will give an update on that. Among others, was to bring stability at the level of management and at the level of the board. That has been achieved. At the present moment, we are building from scratch in terms of giving capacity to PRASA and employing the right people in the right positions. And that is why you see work like this is actually being implemented. Corridors are being resuscitated, security contracts are being also re-evaluated and getting the right security contracts in place to protect the network. So the lights are flashing. So work is being done. And I took you to Mabopane. Mabopane is back on track. And that is one example I can give you. I can mention others. It's one, but it's one too few, Minister. Yeah, but it's too few, but it's massive. But I can also give you other examples. Salisville is back on track. Leralla is back on track. I'll take you to Naledi, the work that we are doing there. We are bringing down all the stations that were vandalized and bringing them back to life. You're talking about Kliptown. You see that particular work. You look at the central line, the work that we are doing there, the people encroaching in that space, and the work that we have covered, minimum service from mid-July towards July will be back on track in the central line, which is the center of Cape Town. You've got south and north back on track in terms of Cape Town. So, and then already the diesel locomotives are back on track in the Eastern Cape, East London, and Port Elizabeth. We are derailed by the floods, but that is not an excuse. Look at KZN, the work recovery that we have done. So I want you guys to come with us to show you, like I did, the vandalism, but I want you to come with us on the journey of reconstruction. I'm happy to do that, because personally I love trains, and secondly, I think, you know, my personal view on this, Minister, is that this would not have happened to a Gautrain, for example, because the people who use the Gautrain would have made sufficient noise in order to ensure that this sort of thing does not happen. But when we serve the poorest of the poor, we allow the infrastructure to basically be totally obliterated to this extent. And where must these people go? Sakina, if we did not have corruption and we did not have state capture that brought the wranglings and the fightings and all of that focused management on running the trains in this country, particularly passenger trains, we will not be having a problem. But who was responsible for that? Vandalism will always be with us. The question, if there is management, how you deal in fighting back vandalism and criminal element and syndicates in the network. And I can't give you more except to say to you, watch what we are doing. Who was responsible for the state capture element? The state capture element is accounted for in our manifesto. When we came into power and we got 57%, what did we say to our people? Did we lie to them? We said at some point, we did veer away. Ramaphosa, when he went to Union Building, he didn't go on a ticket of lies. He said, I will establish state capture. I will undo corruption.
And indeed, my party that I lead, and which was in charge, at some point, we did veer away. That is in our manifesto.
So you accept that the ANC was responsible for this?
It's not acceptance. It's that in the years been in power, at some point, there is something that went wrong. We wouldn't have established this state capture we're talking about. Who established it?
So it's the ANC who was responsible for this?
The ANC is the governing party. It is the ANC that is undoing what has gone wrong within its ranks and very much clearer about the way forward. So let's not talk about the ANC has not been aware and the ANC did nothing about it. The reason that today we've got the Truth Commission on corruption and state capture is the ANC.
Is that enough, though? Is that enough to keep having reports and no consequences to that?
There are consequences, my
What are the
sister.
consequences,
People have been arrested.
Who's been arrested with regard to PRASA?
With regard to PRASA, people will be arrested. But
so nobody has been arrested yet?
Of course. Let me say this to you, Sakina. It is very painstaking for me to explain that nobody has yet to be arrested or somebody will be arrested. Matters have been handled by state law enforcement agencies, and because of the rupture of the state capture at some point, things got out of hand. And I'm confident as we speak that with work that is being done now, you will see arrest, not just arrest we need conviction.
But earlier in our conversation here this morning, you said that it was because of the inability or the ineptitude or the state law enforcement agencies not doing their jobs that we haven't really
I didn't
seen
say they were not doing their job. I say state enforcement. When you were referring to Tulima Donsela derailed report, why was it not attended to? I said, remember where we come from. Not so far. That state capture involved state agencies. That had to be rebuilt. You've got ID today. That has been brought into the framework of fighting corruption and law enforcement. That has been the interventions that have been made. You have seen, not semblance, decisive action. People being arrested, high profile, they are in court on various cases and all of that. And then I'm confident that journey continues in terms of the reinforcement that has happened in terms of state agencies.
What about the ANC with regard to PRASA? Because again, in the Zondo Commission report, with regard to Swifambo, for example, it asks for further investigations to be done into these matters, but it would seem as though some of the monies that were paid made its way back into the coffers of the ANC.
It is reported like that in the state capture. The ANC itself as an organization is sitting. And part of what the ANC is deliberating on is the state capture itself. What does it say about us? And the ANC will have to respond to that. And I'm not the spokesperson right now to speak because there is a center. The National Executive Committee that has been sitting has received the report on the state capture and is processing that report. We can't let it go. We've got to speak about it, including ideologically, how it affects us, including policies. Like you're talking cadre deployment, the ANC will speak for itself. How we have been affected by state capture by virtue of having been a party in power and having had cadres in strategic positions who, in terms of the report, which was scathing about their participation in the state capture, letting down the party of the revolution. So we've got to confront these things head on. There's no way about it. And piecemeal, I tell you this, you forget after tomorrow what Mbalula said. Allow the ANC led by Ramaphosa to speak about the ANC response to state capture. That's what is important. That's what South Africans are waiting for. We established this commission. We've got to talk about it.
So as we speak about PRASA right now, Auditor General issues a disclaimer. What's going on at PRASA? Why have they not been able to furnish the necessary documents to the AG?
The situation of stabilization at PRASA continues. Unfortunately, Part of the challenges that we've got is the depleted management that we're rebuilding, and that is what I'm talking to you about. And it is reflected in the AG's report. There is no fight about it. PRASA is doing its work to ensure that these disclaimers, some of which have got to do with assets register at PRASA, partly. And that shows you that that component, from supply chain to those who are responsible to ensure that registering of assets and all of that is accounted for, we're missing in action. I mean, at PRASA there, you've got now, as we speak, a CFO who has been suspended with allegations, one, of qualifications, and who's been suspended for a whole range of issues.
Whose fault is that?
It's nobody's fault. It
can't be nobody's fault.
No, it is the fault of those who employed her.
Exactly.
You see, that is the previous board. The one interim board that I dismissed. I dismissed that board. You know why? Because of the GTEC report, ineptness and all of that. Because of that board that you employ a CFO who's got questionable things which are now being investigated in the highest position, chief financial officer.
But you'll agree with me. You'll agree with me. The fact that salaries are paid means that that is unacceptable. That the Auditor General is unable to actually formulate an opinion because of inadequate submissions to her. That can't be right.
When the judge ruled against me on the issue of the administrator, he said, I see your intentions are good. This is a broken place. I never sat on my laurel about undoing the horrible things that are happening there. I'm on track with regard to addressing them. So that is why we are. At PRASA, you could arrive and somebody tells you, Sakina, even to date, that I'm better than that one. I'm better than this one and this one. I'm not interested in that. The trains must come back. Management must be rebuilt like we're doing now. The board must do its job. If it doesn't do its job, we'll get the right people. I believe we do have the right people, the right skills that we deployed with the board. They must do their job.
Public is yet to see it, but we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there, Minister. We're out of time. Thanks so much to Minister Fikile Mbalula, the Minister of Transport.